Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Net Zero Spotlight. Today's session is being delivered by me and my colleague Suhas. First of all, a little about myself. My name is Albi Isaac, and I'm working as a sustainability consultant here at Decerna. My role involves developing net zero route maps for businesses and supporting them on their net zero journey. I have a background in electrical and electronics engineering as well as in environmental management. Today, we will be discussing a bit about carbon reduction plans and how they are significant to businesses. We will also go through how we at Decerna have developed a tool which streamlines the entire process of creating a carbon reduction plan. The presentation will be around 30 minutes, and any questions can be written down in the chat box, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Just a reminder that the slides will also be made available to all the participants as a PDF after the presentation via email. So let's get started. In 2019, UK became the first major economy to commit to achieving net zero by 2050. A procurement policy note, namely PPN 0621, was published by the UK government, which set out the requirements for suppliers in the procurement process. It was introduced by the Cabinet Office in June of 2021, outlining the importance of suppliers' carbon reduction plans and commitments to net zero to be considered in the procurement of all major central government contracts when there is an anticipated contract value of over £5 million per annum. So, what is a carbon reduction plan? A carbon reduction plan is a strategic framework designed to minimize greenhouse gas emissions within an organization or business. It describes the step that a business has to take to achieve net zero emissions within a set time frame. Since September of 2021, suppliers bidding for all major government contracts must commit to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 and also produce a carbon reduction plan. It sets out the standards that carbon footprint data should comply with for inclusion in your carbon reduction plan, how and where you should publish your carbon reduction plan, and how it should be approved and signed off within your organization itself. The procurement policy note applies to all central government departments, executive agencies, and non-departmental public bodies in England. Future changes to this policy will potentially affect all businesses from SMEs to large MNCs, so it's just a matter of time till we see it being made mandatory. The NHS has made it a mandatory requirement for businesses or suppliers bidding for NHS contracts in line with PPN 0621. Also, from April of 2024, the NHS will make it mandatory for all procurement irrespective of the contract value. This brings us to why a carbon reduction plan is significant to a business and what it entails. CRPs detail the organization's emissions across a single year against a range of emission sources and greenhouse gases. So, why are they significant? Environmental sustainability. By reducing carbon emissions, these plans contribute to environmental sustainability by helping to protect everyone, protect ecosystems, natural resources, and also by promoting a healthier and more balanced environment. Climate change mitigation. Carbon reduction plans aims to decrease the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, particularly CO2, into the atmosphere, which is crucial for mitigating climate change and its associated impacts such as raising global temperature, extreme weather events, and sea level rises. Regu- regu- Regulatory compliance. Organizations that adopt and follow carbon reduction plans demonstrate compliance with environmental regulations, avoiding potential legal and financial consequences. Cost savings. Implementing energy efficient practices and technologies as part of carbon reduction plans often leads to cost savings for organizations and in turn encourages adoption of more efficient processes and technologies, thus reducing energy consumption and associated expenses. It also gives businesses an competitive advantage as consumers prefer environmentally conscious products and services, and having a strong sustainability strategy can set a company apart from its competitors. CRP reporting also often leads to the identification of innovative solutions and operational efficiencies. It also attracts a lot of investors because nowadays investors are increasingly considering organizations with whose environmental performance when they make their investment decisions. So, a template of the carbon reduction plan with the detailed guidelines for the content has been published by the UK government, and it can be found in the link via the link provided. Also, the focus is on recording and reporting Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions with an additional inclusion of a subset of Scope 3 emissions as stated. Category 4, upstream transportation and distribution. Category 5, waste generated in operations. Category 6, business travel. Category 7, employee commute. And Category 9, downstream transportation and distribution. It is also important to note that all these categories might not be applicable for every business or organization. This is why the CRP facilitates providing proper justification on why those categories are not applicable to the organization and thus could eventually be excluded from the report. It also provides a detailed account of an organization's efforts to reduce carbon emissions. So, a CRP report creation process has the following steps: data gathering, emission calculation, approval and sign off, and finally publication. The data has to be collected on your organization's emissions and a detailed carbon footprint can be created. Emissions can be calculated by following the guidelines as outlined in the GHG Protocol Corporate Accounting and Reporting Standard. The reporting period selected should be consistent throughout the report and aligned with the organization's financial or calendar year as necessary, and it should be updated within 6 months of the year end to enhance transparency. The suppliers are encouraged to publish their latest CRP on their UK website after being approved by the board of directors or an equivalent management body within the organization. Also, to ensure accuracy and relevance, suppliers must annually review and update their CRP to reflect changes in their organization structures and efforts made to reduce emissions over time, while keeping the reports from previous years on the website for monitoring the progress made by the reporting company over the years. So here we can see a box which shows the necessary sections which are mandatory or which are required in a CRP report. It includes the supplier name and the date of publication of the report, the date the organization has made a commitment to net zero if it is by 2050 or if it is by earlier, the baseline and current year scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions, the emission reduction targets that the organization has adopted, and the future potential reduction targets which they have set and what steps they are following to implement those, how they will reach those targets. Also, the declaration and sign off by the board of directors, and also it should be published on the company's website. So it is important to note that the data gathering and reporting process varies sector to sector and even company to company, and that is why Decerna, in relation to Tees Valley Net Zero project, we will be here to support every business register with the program in each step of the CRP creation process. We at Decerna have developed a tool, Bring About, which streamlines and facilitates each easy and simple CRP report creation. Bring About is a simple to use emission calculator which incorporates the data gathering and reporting mechanisms as mentioned in the GHG Corporate Value Chain Accounting and Reporting Standard. And in order to get you all acquainted with Bring About and how to go about it to create a CRP report, I'm going to hand over the presentation to my colleague Suhas. Thank you.
Thanks, Alvi. So I'll be sharing the screen for the Bring About tool. Yeah. So this is the landing page or the home page of our Bring About tool. So this will be the sign up. So wherein you have to create a new account. So you'll be given a unique registration code for your business, and based on that, you'll be able to enter all your details and be able to create an account for the Bring About tool. So once you have created an account, so you'll be able to log in. with the email ID and password that you have been given. So this is the home page of the Bring About tool, wherein you can see the dashboard. So here I've entered the details just to show you as an example. So I'll be taking you through the individual tabs just to show you how you have to enter the details, calculate your emissions, and then finally generate a CRP report. So first things first, so basic details. So here you can see like the fields are mostly self-explanatory. Like you can choose the business type, your business name, industry sector, your turnover, and so on. So you can do that by clicking on the edit button and make the modifications accordingly, and then save it. You can add, there's an option to add multiple locations and multiple buildings. So here I've added Cramlington and Newcastle as locations and two buildings as an example. So next tab is the reporting year. So basically, like if you have calculated your emissions for the business previously, you can click on the S option. Otherwise, if this is your first time calculating your emissions, then you can select no and then give the base year accordingly. So here as an example, I've selected 2023 as the base year. You can edit and change it to the financial year if you wish. So this is the business details. This data will be pulled from the basic details tab itself. So in case if you have any other details to enter, then you can feel free to edit the option here and then enter the details accordingly. So next comes our emission categories. So this will be for the year 2023 as this is my base year. So if you needed a CRP, just click on this toggle button and automatically all the emission categories related to the CRP will be selected, as I'll be explained in the theory part in the earlier slides. And then click on Save. So once you click on the Emission Sources tab, automatically those categories of emissions will be populated here for you to enter the emissions. So as an example, I've pre-populated these fields with certain emission sources. For example, biogas, refrigerants like HFC under the category 1 of scope 1. So the same way you can enter the other emission sources like purchase electricity, upstream transportation distribution, waste generated, and so on. So once you're done entering all the details under emission sources and saved your data, you can click on confirm and next. And then it gives you an error, like for example, if you have missed any categories. So here in this example, I've missed the category downstream transportation and distribution. So for which I need to provide a justification as to explaining why this particular category is not filled and why it is not applicable for my business. So here, in this example, I will be giving a justification like, since our business is service based or consultancy, we do not have any downstream emissions. So by providing this justification and saving your data, you'll be able to move on to the next stage. So this way you can enter all the emission sources and then save your data. Next comes the emission report. So here in this report, you can clearly identify which is your scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. I mean the quantification of it. So you can also identify the location based emissions and then the scope wise emissions as well, if you wish, and then the detailed explanation or the emission quantities would be shown in this below table. Scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, the scope 3 emissions based on the emission sources that you have entered in the previous tabs. Next comes our target settings. So here in this example, I have set my near-term target as 2030 for my 2023 base year emissions with a reduction percentage of 4.2% as recommended by the science-based targets. and then you can click on save target. So your near-term target would be saved. In a similar way, you can also set your long-term target uh, in the same way, like by selecting the scope and the target year of your emissions, and then by giving the total reduction target for your long term as well. So as per the science-based targets, 90% is the actual limit, that the recommended target level. But if your company is more ambitious, then you can modify it accordingly. And this is a simple graph which explains the year-on-year decrease. And then click on save target. And then coming on to the main part, that is generating your CRP. So by clicking on this button, then you'll be able to generate the CRP for the year that you wish. So since this is my first year calculating the base year, so 2023 is the only option that would appear here. And then if I click generate, the carbon reduction plan would be automatically, it's a template which will automatically ask you certain fields to be filled in along with the details of the emissions in each scopes. So here one of the fields that you have to fill in is the additional details relating to your baseline emissions. So since this is my baseline, I mean base year emission 2023, I do not have any other data to be filled in, so this field would be not applicable for me. And then coming on to the carbon reduction plans, in the future we hope to implement further measures. So you can put an example of, say, to give you an example, installation of solar panels in 2024 to reduce scope 2 emissions. So by this way, you can give the carbon reduction projects that you wish to accomplish, and then the declaration and sign off is obviously done by the company's board of directors or equivalent management body. They can sign here, and then the CRP could be exported. So this is a PDF export of the same report, as you can see. Yes, so this is a brief explanation of theory in practice, like uh, identifying your emission sources, setting your target, and then finally generating your CRP report. So this is our bring about tool. Also, I have one more slide which talks about the Tees Valley project. Yeah, so this is a slide relating to the Tees Valley project. So for example, if you are a business in the as a part of a which acting as a part of a Tees Valley project, you will be eligible for fully funded net zero consultation support, which can be booked through our website. You would also be eligible for a grant fund of £2,000 on completion of carbon reduction plan, as I showed you, and the Bring About tool. And this would be applicable for the first 500 businesses in Tees Valley. Also, the business in Tees Valley would have access to webinars, masterclasses, and the spotlight events, such as this one, for their future knowledge building. Um, so yeah, that's everything from my side. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. Thank you.